Cathryn, welcome. It's so nice to have, first of all, a female on the panel. I'm finding there's not as many females in the fintech domain, but it's really great. I appreciate you coming. And also, I'm really interested in what led you to become involved in a fintech company. And, maybe you could give me a little bit of background about that.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, great to be here. I started MarketX about a year and a half ago, basically because I started my career in finance, but I always had an interest in tech. So in high school, I did robotics, and then after that, I got into investment banking, worked for Rothschild in London, J.P. Morgan, and Deutsche Bank in Hong Kong. And while I was working there, I realized there's an tap demand for pre-IPO investments such as Uber, Airbnb, SpaceX, and that's kind of where the idea came about, creating a platform connecting both countries on these pre-IPO investments. And over the last 2 years, you see a huge demand from China to invest in all sorts of financial products, not just on pre-IPO, but also real estate and also fixed income. So now MarketX is a cross-border investment management company that helps Chinese investors invest abroad. So that's basically what we are about. And how I got into it is really, thanks to a lot of the entrepreneurs here who kind of, draw me back to the US. I actually worked for a startup before I created my own company. So that kind of led me into, Silicon Valley and FinTech.
Fantastic. And so, what differences do you see in Silicon Valley and China?
Sure. So I actually am very excited that my business is cross-border because I get to see how VC and startup world is like in Silicon Valley, but I also see a new type of energy in Beijing. So Beijing, as many people know, is kind of the equivalent of Silicon Valley in China. I go to every startup, Starbucks, and you see here people pitching new ideas to VCs. Another thing is I find people in China to have more of a focus on kind of doing the business model innovation versus like hardware versus software development. So for example, with our market, that's a cross-border marketplace. You can see a lot of the BAT type of companies and also smaller companies that creates businesses that kind of really innovate on like how we can push on distribution, how we can push on people. So that's something I really find innovating, and given how big that market is, it's just really exciting to be there.
And I guess there's a lot more regulation, everyone tells me, in the US compared to China. And I guess there's a little bit more freedom in China for innovation. So, how do you see that playing out?
It's very fascinating. In China, I see, basically investment across the board, fintech, healthcare, education, everything, and e-commerce world's blowing up there as well. Where I see, kind of the regulatory agencies are actually more prone for entrepreneurship because the government really wants to instill this idea that for us to move forward, entrepreneurship is the only way to do that. So, for example, with fintech, the government is a lot more helpful in terms of giving guidance. So, for example, in Hong Kong, they will actually have these test water cases. They give you a very safe environment to do a different type of innovation, and that doesn't really, you don't see that much here. Our laws are a lot more stringent. You have to follow SEC FINRA rules in order to establish a business, which makes that kind of entrepreneur endeavor a lot harder in the beginning. So that's something I feel like on the China side, they're actually doing a very good job on that.
And what would the obstacles be in China for fintech?
I would say, based on what I've seen, one, there's a lot of fraud issues, because things move very fast. You see, also there's any bad players that kind of creates a crazy world in the blockchain side. And then also for us, it's just education. You know, for people to invest in these alternative investments, you need to have the basic sophistication, understanding the products. So we spend a lot of time doing the education, bring people together in seminars, at different conferences, and like really talk about the basics of investing. So I think that's an area for, it's a big challenge, but also it's a lot of opportunities there.
And it's great that they have you as an ambassador between Silicon Valley and China. I'm sure you're a great ambassador, and it's so fabulous that you're a woman as well. Thank you so much for coming tonight, and I'm looking forward to the panel.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.